One of the stories that has dominated the summer has been the Labour anti-Semitism row. And the latest development on this is that hundreds of complaints of alleged anti-Semitism against Labour members, of course, including Jeremy Corbyn, the leader, remain unaddressed as its internal investigation unit has all but collapsed. They're now in a situation where, after the former head of compliance unit left shortly after the arrival of the new General Secretary, Jenny Formby, at least two other members have followed. There is now just one staff member who is investigating cases, and that's with a number of cases believed to be as high as 500 cases. A huge backlog then. And of course, that includes a complaint lodged against Jeremy Corbyn after his refusal to apologise for statements he made, all videoed in 2013, that Zionists who have lived in this country probably all their lives lacked a sense of English irony. Now, let's talk about this with Labour MP for Bermondsey and Old Southwark, Neil Coyle, and also Mike Cushman, who's founder, member and officer of Jewish Voice of Labour. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning. Neil Coyle, it is extraordinary that, that Labour, a party that has always defined itself as being a party fighting racism and discrimination as part of its raison d'etre, should find itself in this position. But how damaging is it for the party that this is what we are now talking about? If I talk about Labour, if I suggest my producer we're doing a Labour story, it's very rarely now about policy. We don't hear any policy announcements. It's always about these internal rows. Accusations of anti-Semitism against not just Labour Party members, people on Twitter, but actually against the Labour leadership.
Yeah, it's utterly shameful that Labour's ended up in this position, one that includes being, subject of an inquiry by the Equality and Human Rights Commission, the party that has been, the champion of equal rights and tackling discrimination for its entire existence. And you're absolutely right. The thing that frustrates me most and the thing that is most saddening is that on any measure, on housing, on crime, on tackling poverty, on the explosion of food banks, that's what Labour should be talking about. That's what voters want to hear us talking about. That's what I work on most within my constituency and within Parliament on behalf of my constituents. And that is drowned out because of this incessant row and the failure to get a grip and tackle the problem, which is, in the main, a too large number of crackpots on the very hard left who enter the right or claim to speak for. And I think one of the problems the party's having is distinguishing between those who are genuine party members and those who claim to speak for the party leader, who may not even be members because of the number of fake online social media accounts.
Well, you talk about crackpots, and now, Mike Cushman, I know that some people have used that word about you. You're founder, member and officer of Jewish Voice for Labour, a group that was started only last summer as a bid to sort of tackle, it said, these claims of anti-Semitism, but has largely been seen by many who are upset about what's going on in Labour as have been sort of basically a defender at all costs of Jeremy Corbyn against any of these allegations. Do you not think that these claims are now so widespread and so damaging that the party needs some root and branch reform?
No, I mean, the party has to address the issues raised. Of course it does. We're a political party. We're responsible to our electorate. But the fact that these claims are played and replayed is different to what the reality is. As we know, from criminology, fear of crime and incidents of crime are very loosely related. The fact that a lot of people are making noise about a small number of incidents is about who is making the noise rather than about what the Labour Party is doing. Yes, there are some instances of anti-Semitism and they must be rooted out and dealt with firmly. But that's not the reality of the day-to-day life of Labour Party members.
Well, you say that, but wait a minute. Look, I'm on Twitter. I follow a lot of Labour MPs. I see on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, even a minute-by-minute basis, extraordinary abuse being hurled at anyone in the Labour movement who is Jewish, particularly some prominent Jewish MPs. And you're basically saying, it's all made up. It's all in their minds. It's not. I've read the tweets myself. Or are those tweets made up?
Sorry, I find abuse of anybody really sad and really disturbing. I find abuse of Jeremy Corbyn, which is extremely widespread, appalling. I find the abuse that I received by these warriors against anti-Semitism horrific. Every day I get emails, I get tweets calling me a capo, calling me a Nazi, calling me all sorts of things. Now, there is too much abuse on Twitter, but the abuse is two-way, and some of the abuse is given a lot of publicity. Some of the abuse, well, I just live with it. I don't go.
Wait a second, you're
running and
saying the
making a
abuse
fuss
is
about it the whole time.
two-way. Are you saying that Luciana Berger, a very prominent female Jewish MP, that she's giving out abuse to a bunch of
I didn't
Corbyn's...
say anything about Luciana Berger.
No, I'm asking you what you've just said. The abuse is two-way.
I'm not abusing Luciana
I didn't say...
Berger.
Mike, can you follow
me.
the train of a logical argument? You've just said the abuse is two-way. So when a prominent Jewish woman MP like Luciana Berger receives a huge, torrents of the most vile abuse and threats, and they are very blatant about because she is Jewish, are you saying somehow she's deserved that? She's given it out so she gets it back? Because I've not seen any abuse from her.
I didn't say
So what
that,
is this
Julia.
two-way abuse thing you're talking about?
What I said was, I don't know who's launching the abuse against Luciana Berger. If it's Labour Party members abusing her for being Jewish, then they need to be dealt with.
But they're not being dealt with, are they?
If it's Labour Party members challenging her because of her role as in Labour Friends of Israel and her support from the apartheid state, that is legitimate political criticism. And those two are too often confused. Now, I don't know whether the people who are attacking Luciana Berger for being Jewish are members of the Labour Party or
well,
not.
they define themselves invariably as Corbynistas, as Labour Party members. Neil Coyle, the reality is, Mike Cushman's group, a Jewish Voice for Labour, they obviously came to most people's light after they organised a counter demonstration against the actual demonstrations outside Parliament by many people, including many Jewish groups involved in the Labour Party, against the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. Is this either all just a smear against Jeremy Corbyn? Is this abuse all two-way? Is that your impression?
Look, JVL are unbearable, quite frankly, because they were invented to put Jeremy Corbyn before tackling racism within the Labour Party. They turned out at that Board of Deputies demonstration, which I was at with a heavy heart, trying to work out how best to tackle the problem. They turned up to say the problem was invented. They turned up to pretend the problem was a smear. That is not how you tackle a problem. It's certainly not how the Labour Party tackles racism. I'm proud of my party's history on this issue, and I want to be proud of my party's current and my party's future on this issue. But until we get rid of JVL, until we get rid of those who deny there's a problem, until we properly have an investigation system that throws out of the party anyone with anti-Semitic or racist views, we are not going to get on top of it.
Neil Coyle, thank you. Mike Cushman, the reality is, just by his own words, as we saw that latest video of Jeremy Corbyn, the 2013 speech that he was making, talking about Zionists and irony and not understanding English irony, by his own words, looking at the definition of anti-Semitism as defined by Baroness Chakravarty in her own report into anti-Semitism of the Labour Party, he fails that test. Should Jeremy Corbyn, if we want to tackle anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, given video recorded words he himself said, should he not be thrown out of the Labour Party?
Well, let's look at the video again. I have looked at the video. He was talking about two people who were being extremely disruptive, who were being extremely rude to the Palestinian High Commissioner. And he was addressing two people. He wasn't addressing Zionists wholesale. It wasn't addressing
that's not the context.
Thousands of Jews. He was addressing
that's not the context.
Two people.
You know that's a lie, Mike Cushman. That's not the context.
Let me finish, Julia. Two people who, when I've been chairing meetings, I've had difficulty controlling because they've been so disruptive and so rude. Now, let's have a context. He wasn't talking about Zionists wholesale. He was talking about two people and their very bad behaviour.
I've watched the video in full. There's no question at all that wasn't the context. You think it's absolutely fine for Jeremy Corbyn to continue as Labour leader despite the fact that he consistently makes statements and shares platforms with people who express the most outrageous anti-Jewish views?
Like who? Like Chaim Meir, like a survivor of Auschwitz, who's entitled to talk about his experience.
Like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like the people he was honouring at the Tunisian cemetery.
People like Chaim Meir, who he was.
You mentioned the one Jewish Holocaust survivor. Well done, you.
I'm saying he received an enormous amount of abuse for being on a platform with Hayo. And
who from?
He gets abused no matter what he does.
Who was the abuse from?
From the press.
I don't think
it was all over the media, wasn't it?
I think you're confusing criticism with abuse. So those are different things in a modern democracy. Of free speech.
It's abusive to call him an anti-Semite because he was.
Well, you know what then? I believe Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic and racist. He can sue me. We have libel courts. He can sue me. He can take me for every single penny he wants. He just has to call his libel lawyer.
Look, calling. There are better things to do with Labour Party money.
Oh, but he'd win it, wouldn't he? Because he's not an anti-Semite, you're convinced. He'd win that case. Come on, Jezza. Sue me. I think you're anti-Semitic. I think everything you do and say suggests you are anti-Semitic. I think you're an anti-Semite, just like Margaret Hodge, prominent Jewish Labour MP. If that's not true, prove to me that it's not true. Take me to court, sue me for libel, and let's get this out in the open.